The Nintendo Switch is in a pretty darn strange situation when it comes to third-party support, because while it goes on to be one of the fastest selling systems of all time, and has plenty of room to continue to grow, third parties aren't rushing to make games for it. In fact, I wouldn't even say they care to make games on it, and that seems really weird, because the Switch has a huge audience, many of whom would probably love to play a lot of the games third parties could bring, and from what I've gathered, most of the quality games that have been moved to the Switch have done really well. But if that's the case, then where are these games? Hello all 354 of you, I'm Redkwan, and why are we still not getting many third-party games? A lot of people thought that 2018 was going to be the year of the third parties on the Switch. The first-party big hitters made 2017 a great year, but there was no way 2018 was going to have that much support from Nintendo. The thought was, with the Switch off to a great start, third parties would quickly jump on board with the system, and by this year the games would start rolling in. They haven't. In fact, 2018 has been arguably worse for third parties than 2017 was. Sure, there are plenty of indie games, but with big AAA developers, we've almost had nothing. And that's been a little bit of the problem this year, as there really hasn't been a whole lot to play besides smaller titles. E3 was a chance to get some big stuff, and while games like Fortnite and Dragon Ball FighterZ were announced for the system, that doesn't change the fact that hardly any third-party games are coming. But the real question here is, why are they not coming? A pretty common answer is that the Switch just couldn't handle a lot of these games, just like I couldn't handle the news that I was having asparagus for dinner. I wish I was kidding. But the thing is, even if it couldn't handle a lot of those games, there's still plenty that it could handle that passed the opportunity up. And I really do think that most of the games on the other systems could be run on the Switch. For the first few years of the PS4 and Xbox One's existences, all the same games came to the Xbox 360 and PS3. And I think that means pretty much all the games coming out for them even now would be able to run on the more powerful Switch. Sure, it might take a few downgrades and tweaks, and the games might not have the highest resolution or a perfect frame rate, or whatever else people care about, but if it runs alright, which I think it would still make sense for them to bring the thing over. Even a lower quality version could end up making a ton of money, especially when people see the opportunity to play the game portably. People aren't buying a Switch because of its amazing graphics anyway. I guess you could argue that they aren't buying it for third-party support either, but they've sold pretty well, so I think that most of the games could come to the Switch and would do well there. So I have a hard time believing that's the only reason. I suppose some developers might not want to sacrifice their vision to downgrade the game, but I think it's still a little hard to buy. Another possibility is that these companies didn't expect the Switch to do as well as it has done, and they didn't start development on a lot of these games in time to make a Switch version. It seems plausible, especially after how the Wii U sold, and how some companies didn't do so hot with the games they put there. But you would still think there would be a bit more than there are. Even if the games were just ported over later like Doom and Wolfenstein. Once these games are made, it doesn't seem like it would be that hard or time consuming to do a simple port. And if hardly anything is being announced, even now after the Switch's second E3, I think that whole idea probably isn't a huge thing either. If that was the main problem, it would be starting to become less of a factor by now, and there would still be a decent amount of old or fairly new ports to the Switch. And while there have been some, there still haven't been a huge amount compared to the amount of games releasing. This might be a bit of a factor, but I think at this point there's probably more to it than just that too. And that's what's so confusing to me. I have to believe that most of the games on the Xbox One and PS4 can run on the Switch in some form. And while a Switch version might not have been initially planned, it's been out and being successful for over a year now. And I think at least working on a port could have been done for a lot of the games that skipped the Switch. With E3 not having many more big third-party surprises, it's a little hard to see why they aren't putting games on the Switch. I think even Nintendo expected more games this year to make up for their lack of offerings. Maybe porting to the Switch isn't very easy, or maybe they really do just need more time, and maybe the Switch really just can't handle a lot of the other systems' games, for some reason. But honestly, none of these things seems like something that would really stop games from being put out. Companies love their money, and it seems like every game that comes to the Switch does well. The cost of the Switch cards might be too much, or they might not see most of the games as a good fit to sell well to the audience that owns the Switch. Or maybe they just got lazy. I mean, I don't know, I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel here. And that's why it's so frustrating. I don't really see any obvious reasons why the Switch games aren't coming. I have to believe that either there's something I'm not considering, or that one of these things is actually a pretty big issue, or maybe it just all adds up to being something not worth doing. Or, I could just be super oblivious, because that sounds like something I'd do. Well, I'm Redkwan. What do you think about third-party support on the Nintendo Switch? Why do you think they aren't putting more games out? Seriously, I want closure on this, and I have no clue what I'm doing. Tell me in the comments. Anyways, I'm Redkwan, thank you all for watching, and I'll hopefully see you all later. Goodbye.